stream. And welcome. Good morning. That was just my Google Calendar, I guess. So good morning, good evening, wherever you are. And as always, I'm happy to be with you. You know, I'm not actually really that set up this morning because I actually have to get my setup going. I have to put it in this setup here just because I just came from a class. I do have a summer class that I'm teaching online, and so yeah, that's I had to move the time of the live stream. So sorry for now. I have to move the time of the live stream, but next week. Not next week. Actually, just for the next 6 weeks, it'll be this way, and then after the next 6 weeks, I'll move it back to the original time. So this is just one hour later, but you'll have to bear with me as I. You know what? I'm just not going to use this. I think you guys can hear me and see me just fine. I think this will be fine for today. I don't have to put it in my in this thing, in this setup. So. Yeah, so we're gonna talk about today. We're gonna talk about today as my dog begs me for food. So what we're gonna talk about today, actually, I will. You know what? Nothing. There's no rule that says I can't feed my dog and talk to you guys at the same time, right? So I will do that. So today I want to talk with you about some principles that I've used in when it comes to learning and then applying that knowledge to business, right? And building a business. Now, not all of you may be involved in running a business or wanting to run a business, but I think nonetheless. Hold on one second. This is a little noisy. This is just her food, so I'm just feeding her. Nonetheless, even if these principles, you feel like these principles do not apply to you because you are not building a business, they still do. I think they still do apply because they're just helpful for making decisions and turning knowledge into actual action. So, just to give some understanding, for those of you who are new to the live stream, I have been an academic primarily. I was an academic for since 2013. I published my first academically published book in the field of value theory, which is a highly interdisciplinary field. I ate, slept, and breathed theory, dreamed about theory. So I understand what it's like to be super theoretical and operate purely from a theoretical framework. And actually today, in fact, to this day, I still am wary about that, of being too steeped in theory. Back in 2013 also, funny enough, almost right after I published that, and I did all that work and research and everything, I got swept up into the world of entrepreneurship. It's really a long story, but I got swept up into the world of entrepreneurship. I ran a very difficult business to run. Then later on, I got some other opportunity to do run a test prep agency and do that business, and then and I got out of that business. I just do YouTube now. I just do YouTube. I love doing YouTube. YouTube is great. So, but and I do some actually virtual teaching. Obviously, I do some virtual teaching, different subjects, different students, and things like that. But that's all my own business. That's all my own private clientele as well. Along the way, so I've gotten a lot of experience in different types of business and different ways of doing business. And it's very, very important. I think the number one thing that's very, very important is everything you read. It doesn't matter whether it's philosophy, whether it's a self-help book, whether it's, I don't care, whether it's a fiction book. Don't just sit there and you say that's great. Take some action on what you read. You say, well, fiction book, a philosophy book, how can I take some action on what I read? You can. You absolutely can. You learn something that is of moral value in everything you read, I believe. There's some moral implication of everything you read. What are you going to change when you read? So the thing about this is, self-help books, if we're being very honest, right? You might say, well, self-help books are really great for that, right? They're very actionable. They can be. They can be. Um, in more recent years, I've criticized self-help books because I've sat and you might have watched some of my videos and critiquing self-help and stuff like that. Strictly speaking, I do think there's a role for self-help. But strictly speaking, yeah, self-help, it's kind of full of personal stories and anecdotes and things that people think might work, and it's not really data driven for the most part. These things are not data driven. They're kind of inspiring. They kind of motivate you to feel a certain way or whatever. For the most part, again, for the most part, they have nice sounding ideas, a lot of different aphorisms and little witty sayings and things like that. But they do have a value. They do have a value, and there is a value, and it's why people get attracted to self-help over philosophy, I think, which is a detriment to philosophy, honestly. And philosophers can be more like this. But self-help has the value of leading somebody to face something very personal. Face something very personal about themselves. Really look themselves face to face with something very, very personal and make you confront that thing that's very, very personal. And that's kind of what self-help does, and that's kind of the value, I think, about self-help, mostly. Philosophy doesn't often make you do that. Philosophy, welcome, just a guest. Philosophy doesn't often make you come face to face with these hard truths about yourself, or like personal shortcomings or personal things that you need to adjust about yourself. In fact, there are so many philosophers out there who, and I've read, I don't know, maybe thousands of books and articles combined in terms of philosophy, like very academic. As I told you at the beginning of the live stream, I have a very academic background and a business background. And so I've read all these academic books and philosophy books, and you'd think, well, yeah, they're very deep, right? They make you face very practical things about yourself and things to improve. No, they don't actually. Most of them don't. They're very highly theoretical. And so, but you should still seek these books out and seek to draw some personal inspiration from them. Now, how do you use the information? How do you actually use the knowledge, whether it's from a philosophy book or a self-help book, both of which have these kinds of potential shortcomings? Well, you have to go out and do these uncomfortable things. And I know you've probably heard it in terms of, a lot of self-help gurus and stuff like that, but it's so true. It's so true. You do need to go out. You cannot sit at home and theorize. You have to do the uncomfortable thing, whatever that uncomfortable thing is for yourself. And you know it, right? You know it right now. What is that uncomfortable thing? And a lot of times with respect to business, the uncomfortable thing is doing the thing that you spend the most time thinking about. Do you spend the most time thinking about plotting out a business plan? You might spend a lot of time just plotting out a business plan. Oh, I know I've done that a lot. I've done that a lot where I'm plotting out, okay, here are my numbers, here are my conversion rates, and here's this and that, and here's whatever. This is going to be the perfect system and setup. And guess what? You actually need to not do that as much, the planning part. You need to plan to some extent. But I think I learned this especially in my first business. You need to plan to some extent. But what's most important, and my first business was actually very much the opposite of academic stuff, theoretical stuff. It was like the most extreme opposite you can think of, which was what? Which was direct sales, which was in your face, sitting across a coffee table with someone. I'll never do it again, by the way, because I did it for 10 years. But sitting across a coffee table from someone and trying to persuade them how to what to buy from you. So yeah, So what's the conversation about? The conversation we're having is how to apply the theoretical knowledge that we learn from philosophy, from self-help, to business success, or even you can apply these principles to career success as well. But so the idea here is you have to kind of get beat up. Like you have to experience that disappointment. I remember I went 68 appointments in my first when I was doing these sales appointments. I went 68 appointments, and these were not Zoom. Like nowadays you can do sales and stuff by Zoom. No, this was before Zoom. I had to go and book the appointment, call the person. I had to actually call on the telephone. There was you didn't really text a lot at that point. I sound really old. I'm not that old. I'm 36, but still, call the person, book the appointment, make sure, call to remind them again, and make sure they don't cancel. Show up, and then it was a no-show potentially, no call, no show. That happens, right? You get disappointed from that. When the person does show up, sit there and talk to them, try to build a relationship, make a bunch of mistakes, say the wrong thing. You actually have to experience all that. Squid and Dionisio Silva, welcome. So you have to experience all of that. And yeah, I remember when I first started, again, I remember the number because it was so painful. I did 68 appointments in person, 68 appointments. And I got 2 sales. I got 2 sales. And one of them, I think, what was it? I got some sort of refund, something like that. So it was really, really bad. I was horrible. I was horrible. And you get all in your head, right? You get all up in your head about, well, can I really do this? Do I have the ability? Is this what's the percentage chance that I'm going to succeed versus that I'm going to fail? So, and these are all rational considerations. What we need to do at that moment is kind of what I call the wash, rinse, and repeat cycle of reading and learning. So you start with something theoretical. Which is, in my case, back a long time ago, it was that academics. I was really good at theory. I was really good at constructing theories. I was really good at all of that. And so I kind of knew how to do that, but then I didn't know how to do the practical part well. So I had to push myself to socialize. I was very, very asocial. I didn't even know. I was very awkward. Maybe I'm still awkward. I think I'm still awkward, but I embrace it now. That's the difference. I embrace the awkwardness. So basically, okay, the idea is you have to go and make these really big mistakes. Go and make these really big, painful mistakes. Go back and then target. What do I need? Don't just aimlessly read a book. A lot of people do this where they'll aimlessly read some self-help book, or they'll aimlessly, I heard 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is good. I heard, whatever was good. Don't aimlessly read books. Once you've made a mistake, once you've made these big mistakes, go and seek out very targeted knowledge, right? Okay, I didn't do that at that time, but what I should have done when I failed at those 68 appointments, what I should have done is I should have said, okay, well, maybe I need more social skills. So let me read a book on social skills or something like that. Maybe I need a book. Maybe I need something about relationship building, right? So maybe do that. Maybe I need to read 3 more sales books, right? Different methods of sales or something like that. Maybe I need to do that. And then so target the skill. Go back, read those things, go back out, and be committed to experience more pain in a sense. That's, I would say, even before you have any kind of successful business, speaking from having had varying degrees of success in 3 different businesses at this point. Naji, welcome. I think before you have a successful business, you have to have at least one failed business. I mean, and I think that's true for anybody who has done any business. And I don't care what kind of business that is. It could be a bunch of people coming together in a worker cooperative and starting a business. People do that, right? People do that. Any type of business. I'm not necessarily talking about these like huge corporations or whatever. I'm talking about in any business that you start. I'm talking about if you're self-employed and you have clients, right? That counts as a business. So any type of business you do have to have enough of this practical experience and this wash, rinse, and repeat cycle where you go, you experience a big challenge, a big setback, big pain, then go back to the drawing board, target the skills you need, read specific books on those specifically, and then go back and experience more and apply those specific things. Go back and keep wash, rinse, and repeat. And, at some point, you will find out, like, is the business that I'm doing now, Revamp 7625, welcome. Is the business that I'm doing now actually the thing that I should be doing? Is it the successful thing that I should be doing? Yes. Mushabul Abla. I think I pronounced it right. So welcome. Yeah, you'll answer that. For me, the answer was no. But I did that business for 10 years before I realized, oh no, this is not the business for me. I actually had a good degree of success in that business eventually, after about 4 years of failure in the beginning. I eventually had a good degree of success. It was like a livable income. But that was through a lot of struggle. It was a lot of struggle. I still have benefits today from it that are ongoing benefits. You can't really think of that you wasted time doing something, even if ultimately, okay, that's not the path I wanted to take. Because why? It informs you. Yuki, welcome. Darshan, welcome. I'm great. How are you? Because ultimately, it does a couple of things for you. It gives you lifelong skills. So I have lifelong skills now that I don't think I would have had if I had just stuck with the academic route, with the theoretical route. And so I'm really grateful for that. I think I can apply these skills to so many more things now that it would have been impossible to apply later. Number two, you actually gain a lot of contacts. So from my first business that I did, I still today have, and from my second business, I still have so many contacts, like so many people. Now, are they all my friends? No, they're not all my friends, right? Yuki, this discussion is about how to turn theoretical knowledge into business or career success. So yeah, no, creating business is hard. Competing against other companies, it does make it harder. I will say probably the most competitive business I was in the test prep industry, and specifically I was running a location, and I was in the same building as another test, like our office was in the same building as another test prep school, so it was always like, there was always that pressure to kind of stay ethical at the same time, because and sometimes that happens. You have to go back and really understand, like, what are your principles, because there's a lot of pressure to like take each other's clients or try to use dirty tactics, and yes, it can be very competitive. That can be very competitive. So there are a lot of bad incentives within business sometimes, and you have to understand, go back to philosophy, honestly, go back to what your core principles are when you're running and doing anything. And that comes to when you're working in a career. By the way, this is not just hierarchical capitalist firms that this happens with. Again, in a worker cooperative, you can have ethical problems too, right? So don't just say one thing is a utopia and the other thing is ethically pure or not. No. You can have, if you're running a worker cooperative, there are lots of problems as well, right? So yes, Wallace, welcome. So I would say, and here's the third thing that I learned. So you get a lot of contacts. So number one, you get a lot of skills from the first business that you run. Number two, you get a lot of contacts. Wallace, yes, you can access this later on. This will be automatically recorded and uploaded right after this is done. So you can access it later. You get a lot of skills. You get a lot of contacts. So I have contacts to this day. Some of those people have become friends. That's the great thing. Some of these people have become friends. and then some friends I got later. The third thing that's really valuable is you gain perspective. Because Caleb, welcome. The third thing you gain is perspective, because I have lots of perspective. What kind of perspective? The perspective of when to quit is just as important as the perspective of when to know when to keep going. So I'll give you some idea. I got to a point in my first business where I started to realize, my values aren't really totally aligned with it. Like, what am I doing? Like, when I wake up in the morning, I just, it's like the same old thing, and I'm not aligned with this. I'm not aligned with this anymore. And I actually knew that for a long time. And I'm sure you have come to realizations like that too, where you've realized you're doing something for a long time. In the back of your mind, you kind of know you shouldn't be doing it anymore, but you don't want to admit it, because admitting that would mean kind of deconstructing, tearing apart, and changing a lot of things, right? So that becomes very painful to admit it to yourself. But eventually I just was like, you know what? I admit it. And I'm going to answer your questions for a moment, okay? In a moment, but because I think there are some great questions here. So hang on. Do you know what actually helped me though? Because it's hard to change that mindset. What helped me eventually was I started to see my next opportunity as extremely viable. All right, I started to see that actually was YouTube for me. I started to see how it was viable, because long story short, I realized I could get some coaching and how to do it properly, and how to do my channel properly and all that stuff, and learn how to do everything. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is something that I'm going to grab onto. I think I can do this. And so that made it safer for me to transition to the next opportunity. The moral of the story there is learn to admit it to yourself, but try to find other avenues for yourself, and try in your mind to construct a way that would make it more doable. The more doable the alternative starts to become for you in your mind, the safer you feel to transition to the next thing. So do whatever you can to actually make that feel more doable to you. It might be reading some books, right? It might be consulting with a mentor. It might be seeking out some other types of resources. So let's read some of your comments here. So I'm gonna say Abla, because it's hard to pronounce that first one. So there are companies who have more knowledge, more experience, more connections, more money than you, and more employees. So how to compete with that kind of competition? Seems impossible. Okay, so let me answer this for a moment. You always have some competitive edge in something. It might not be in your current industry that you have that competitive edge, but so for instance, let me give you some example. Do you have better technical skills, some specific technical skills than somebody else? Like, do you bring that to the table more than, let's say, the competitor does? Do you have some specific communication skills or sales skills or maybe some access to some sales system or something like that makes you more competitive? Do you even have some specific branding that makes you more unique than the competitor? Like, you have to look for your competitive advantage. It's not always impossible, but you might have to admit it is impossible in your current industry, or it's highly unlikely in your current industry. So again, don't be married to your current industry. Be honest with yourself. Maybe might you need to change your business model a little bit. Might you need to change the actual business that you're in a little bit. All right. So, and this is not from theory. This is just from a lot from my own experience. Surrealist Idealist, have you done any work with government at local, state, or federal level, or any international institutions? No, I have not. Hold on, let me think about that. Let me think about that. Actually, yes, indirectly. Via a contract company. I worked for the public school system at one time, indirectly through a contractor with New York State. public school system. So yes, I have. So I had to think about that, and yes, I have. Revamp 7625. Switching from learning to teaching is hard because everyone is literally smarter than. Don't say everyone's smarter than you. See, it comes down once again to having some advantage you don't know. You have to explore your advantages. You have some advantage that other people don't have that you bring to the table in some industry. When you look at the probability of success, just from a statistical vantage point, based on your unique quality in some specific capacity, plus the variety of industries you could apply that to, the probability of your success goes way up. You have to think about it like that. You can't just be, one track. So Yuki, I wanted to start for 3 years, but I feel some kind of fear of unknown that stops you. I tried doing e-commerce, but it failed badly with negative cash flow and 0 customers, which is a great experience to have. Should I see therapists to overcome the feelings? Therapy is not a bad idea. I'll never tell somebody don't seek therapy. Like, therapy is a good idea. I mean, what is therapy? I don't want to reduce it to this, but a lot of therapy is like talking to someone, right? So I mean, if you just need to talk to someone to process your emotions, whatever way you can to process your emotions, you need to process them. It would be simplistic to just say, I hear some self-help gurus and stuff say, get over your emotions, it's not just simple as that. You need to process them. Your brain literally needs to process them. Your prefrontal cortex literally needs to process what your amygdala is delivering to you, okay? I mean, like, it's not as simple as just get over it, right? So you need find some way to process that. It could be journaling, it could be talking to a therapist, it could be. Yes, Caleb, exactly. Find your hedge, find your source of leverage, build on that, and then continue to identify the industry that you'll apply it to. Right? Because you could be in a very saturated industry. And automatically people say, well, I can't succeed in a saturated industry like that. And I used to think, I can't charge too much, right, for whatever I'm selling in my business because there are people who price it lower than me. This is actually the most wrong thinking. In my experience, and I'm not going by data for this actually. Like, you guys know I'm a very data-driven person, but just from my experience, whenever I have sold something that's higher priced, I actually get more sales from the thing that's higher priced because, like, people perceive it as more valuable, and because I am actually bringing more value to the table. Like, usually the things that I'm selling that are higher priced are things that I'm teaching in. And I have and not, it's not like bragging, it's not meant as a brag, but I have huge confidence in my ability to teach. But that's because I've done it so much over long periods of time to different groups of people, to all ages. Like, so I can confidently say, like, if I teach someone something, it's worth whatever I charge, right? And so you actually have to have that level of confidence to charge a lot as well for something that has the requisite value. I'm not just saying charge, so somebody will buy and like scam people. No, like, give people the value, but you have to have confidence in the value that you can deliver. You only get that confidence from doing a lot of what it is that you are seeking to do, right? So, yeah. Mathematical thinking. So revamp 7625. Mathematical thinking, I just heard the term, and layers, not patterns. Yeah, exactly. Transitioning is tough. So actually, believe it or not, because the summer's quite busy for me these days, I actually do have to now teach another client. So I do have to jump off the live stream, but guys, feel free to subscribe, feel free to check out my other videos, feel free to email me, reach out to me anytime, feel free to check out my Critical Thinking Academy if you're interested in that, in any of the descriptions. And yeah, I love hanging out with you guys are great, and I'll see you next week, same time. In the meantime, check out everything I got, and yeah, feel free to reach out. Take care, guys. Have a great day.